Hello, welcome to Spartan Entertainment and Electronics. I'm Ryan. Today we're going to be focusing on the electronic side of things. I have here a system I built about 2 weeks ago. The system was originally intended to be just a web browser, occasional light gaming unit. Has already become something much more. The last week or so I've started using the system for video capture, game streaming, and video editing. Because I'm using it for more than I had originally intended, and because I want to use this channel to review stuff, I want to take a few minutes, go over the parts, and my experience putting all these parts together and using them. So without further delay, here's the parts list. Case is a Cooler Master Q300L MicroATX mini tower. For the motherboard, I have a box here somewhere. I went with an MSI B450i Gaming Plus AC. It's a MicroATX board, or mini ITX board, sorry. For the processor, we went with the APU, Advanced Processing Unit, Integrated Graphics. Went with the Ryzen 5 3400G. It's a 4-core, 8-thread processor with Vega 11 integrated graphics. For the memory, I was aiming for it to be a lower budget system, so I went with 8 gigabytes of DDR4 2666 memory. I didn't keep the package for it, so I can't show that off. It's a dual channel 2x4 kit. For the power supply, went with a Corsair CV550. It's 80 plus bronze rated unit, non-modular. It's pretty simple, straightforward. Has nice black cables, so there's no ketchup and mustard. For storage, we went with the 250 gigabyte Crucial MX550 SSD. Using that for boot drive as well as for programs that we want to be responsive and snappy. For bulk storage, I went with a Western Digital Blue 1 terabyte, 7200 RPM mechanical drive. Typically, I would try and stay away from mechanical drives for new builds. For the intended use of this system, it made more sense to keep the cost down and go with a mechanical drive. For cooling, I'm using the stock Wraith Spire with the APU. It's the one that came in the box. As for the case fans, the case did come with a single 120mm 1000 RPM fan. Although that would have been sufficient, I wanted some RGB. So I picked up the Thermaltake Pure 12 ARGB fans with controller. Kit came with 320mm fans rated for 1500 RPM and an RGB controller. Operating system, we've got Windows 10 Home. Nothing too fancy or crazy there. That's it for the parts list, and now for my favorite part. I'm going to open up the case while I talk here. A brief review of the system and what all's going on in it and how easy it was to put together. Oops, almost lost a screw. That would have sucked. Alright. So as you can see, side panel's pretty easy to come off. 4 little screws to hold it in. It's an acrylic side panel, but we'll get to that in a second. So we'll start with the case. Case is a Cooler Master Q300L, as I mentioned previously. It comes with a single rear-mounted fan. I picked it up on sale for about 50 bucks Canadian. Really nice case. It has an acrylic side panel. The back side just has a pretty standard aluminum side panel. Nothing too fancy, nothing too crazy. The aluminum panel is also held on just with 4 quick thumb screws. So the front, the top, and the bottom of the case are all perforated. I'll pull that off. You can see the perforation there. The perforation holes are conveniently just the right size for, I'll rotate this a little bit here. Conveniently just the right size for the fan mounting screws. Generates a lot of flexibility as to the mounting locations and size of the fans. Really convenient to be able to move the fans around a little bit and set them up how you want them to look. So, there's a couple of dust covers. So, as far as fan mounting goes, there's room for one 120mm fan at the back here. The top and the front can both take 2 fans of either 120 or 140mm varieties. There isn't a lot in the way of creature comforts. There's no power supply shroud. There's no grommets for feeding cables through. There's no real creature comforts like that. So the finished aesthetics are a little bit lacking. But I think if cable managed well, it looks really sharp still. I would definitely recommend a semi-modular or full modular power supply. The case itself is really sturdy. It's all aluminum, minus the one acrylic side panel that goes on this side. The front, top, and bottom all feature dust covers. The top and front ones are nicely designed, as you can see. And yeah, the front and top are magnetic. The one really nice feature in my mind is that the front I/O, input-output panel, can be relocated to 4 different positions. Although having it at the rear of the case over here doesn't really make a lot of sense to me, you can put it there. Be up to you. I don't think it would be wise, but hey, it can go here, 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 or here. 4 little screws holding it in. Just comes out pretty easy. Reroute your cables and away you go. I think with a little bit of RGB and some cable management concessions and an awareness that this is a small form factor case, I'm really happy building in this case. I was able to pick it up on sale, like I said, for about 50 bucks Canadian plus taxes and shipping. On to the motherboard. Tiny little motherboard hanging out in the back here. It is an ITX board. As I said, it is in an MSI B450i gaming, I indicating ITX. I believe the dimensions on it are 6.7 inches by 6.7 inches, so it is a fairly small board. If I were to do this build again, I would look at a MicroATX board instead of an ITX board. Biggest reason for that is the expansion slots. This ITX board only has 1, but now that I'm using it for other things, it would be nice to have a second one so I could upgrade to a discrete graphics card and a capture card potentially. But because I have an ITX board with only the 1 slot, upgrading to both a discrete and an internal capture card isn't really an option, so if I wanted to do that, I'd have to go with an external capture card. Really, my only complaint on this board, there's 4 SATA ports, there's 1 M.2 slot on the rear of the board, which I can spin it around and show off here. There is an M.2 slot right there. More than enough USB 3.0. We got 4 USB 3.0s. I believe these are also 3.0 Gen 1s. There is no USB-C. For me personally, not a big deal. As you can see, the board does come with Wi-Fi integrated. It is Wi-Fi 6. There is a header for front panel USB 3.0, which this case does have. BIOS is okay to navigate. I prefer the Gigabyte BIOS, but MSI is also pretty easy to sort out with some help from YouTube, Google, and the product manual. As far as parts reviews on the APU, the RAM modules, and the storage drives, there's not much to say with those on the install side of it. They came out of the box in good working order, they went into the case in good order, and they work. So, you know, that's awesome. RAM modules, nice simple black. Kingston HyperX Fury, no complaints with them. They've been running great. Power supply, again, not much to say. It's Corsair, good brand. You know you can trust it. As far as mounting of storage, there's 2 SSD mounts. There's one there and one up top here. There's only 1 hard drive mounting slot, and that's right here. This little thumb screw pops off. This whole assembly comes out. Put your drive on, mount it back in, screw it back in, and away you go. Not a ton of cable management space or options. There are tie downs in behind the zip ties here. Super handy to have that. It's nice to have the tie downs in there. I like that the cables are all black with the power supply. There's no ketchup and mustard cables. It's all nice black cables right into the motherboard. Really nice. Power supply is quiet. There's no fan noise from it. I really like the Corsair power supplies and hope to continue using them. Well-built units, run great. The one thing I would change on the power supply if I was to build a system like this again is I'd spend an extra $10 to $30 and go for either a semi-modular or a full modular power supply. With the case being small form factor, there's nowhere to really hide, and not having a PSU shroud, there's nowhere to hide the extra cables, so they're just kind of zip tied right there. They're just hanging out in the chassis. Not a big deal. I'm not too worried about it. Could be worse. Last component is the case fans from Thermaltake. They are really nice little fans. Picked the kit up off of Amazon for about 70 bucks Canadian, including taxes. Had it shipped with Prime, so there was no extra cost there. The fan themselves run great. At about 1,000 RPM, they start to generate some noise. More audible noise, rather. They make noise anyway, but it's more audible after you get to about 1,000 RPM. But with the 3 fans in this smaller form factor build, they haven't really gotten up too high yet. The most I've had them up to is about 900 RPM. The RGBs on the inner ring, spin this a little bit. So back in here on the inner ring, I believe there's 9 LEDs in that hub. They look great. Lots of color options and modes and what have you. I am running them off of the included controller. You can see that mounted in here, just a little magnet on the back side of it. I'm using the included controller because the motherboard, the B450i Gaming AC, does not have a 5-volt ARGB header. It does have a 12-volt. I opted to go with the fans anyway because the price was right and it's a little bit RGB in an otherwise non-RGB build. The included controller has 7 lighting modes as well as 8 different colors to choose from. Kit comes with connectors for all the various motherboard manufacturer 5-volt RGB connectors, as well as a daisy chain to connect all 3 fans to one system header on the board, which is really nice. Kit also comes with the required screws for either case mounting or radiator mounting. Obviously, I've used the case screws. I still have the radiator screws in the box. As just kind of a summary and overview for the parts, I would recommend any of the parts I put into this case. I wouldn't use the B450i board again unless I was doing an ITX build. I would definitely look for a MicroATX board just for that extra PCIe slot. It would be nice to have the option to put a graphics card and a capture card into this system now that I'm using it for that. I would try and go with a semi-modular or full modular power supply. Still 80 plus bronze for the system. I don't need anything more than that. 80 plus gold if I get a really good deal on it. Again, semi or full modular. And I would also try and avoid a mechanical hard drive. Nothing wrong with mechanical hard drives. With the price of SSDs right now, it's just hard to justify putting one in. I could have gone with a 500 gigabyte SSD and eliminated the hard drive, but I wanted a little bit more storage for pictures and video files and things like that. I'll probably convert this at some point in time to a home entertainment unit. So having that 1 terabyte of storage to store movie files and pictures and whatever else I decide to keep on there would be a very handy feature to have. As far as using the system, I've been able to run a few different games on 720p, medium to high graphics settings, and averaging 50 to 60 frames a second. No major drops in the frame rate unless I've had other programs running for recording or streaming video. Temperatures while gaming, video editing, and converting the video files have all been pretty reasonable, I think. The highest CPU temperature I've seen has been about 68 degrees. The highest system temperature I've seen has been about 38 degrees Celsius. Both of those temperatures were while converting a video file from some Outer Worlds footage I'd captured. The system runs fairly quiet unless under a hard load. The video conversion, it got fairly noisy while I was running that. CPU fan, stock AMD Wraith Spire cooler, runs on average about 1800 RPM, which isn't really noticeable or annoying or anything like that. Case fans under idle hang around about 750 RPM. While I was doing the video editing and converting that one video file, the CPU fan ran up to about 3300 RPM. It was fairly loud at that point. The case fans ran up to about 900 RPM. Definitely ramped up under load. SSD is nice and responsive when doing startup. I'm usually to the log on screen within 15 to 20 seconds. Logged on with full system running at about 45 seconds. My old desktop was about 2 minutes, so pretty happy being down to 45. That's a considerable improvement. I am really happy with this build. There are some things I would like to upgrade in the future if I'm going to keep using it for streaming, editing, that kind of stuff. I'd like to upgrade the memory. 16 gigabytes would be a considerable improvement, especially for gaming, streaming combination. 32 to 3600 megahertz would be kind of a requirement, I think. That seems to be pretty standard for AMD from what I can see online. I'd also like to upgrade to a discrete graphics card. The APU runs fine for 720. Not great for streaming, editing, exporting video files. It struggles with it. It does it, but it struggles with it. So I'd like to upgrade to a discrete graphics card, maybe a GTX 1660 or an RX 5500 XT. I'd also like to upgrade the motherboard to a MicroATX. So I'd be able to the capture card as well as the graphics card. None of the upgrades are in the budget at the moment, so I'll make do with what I've got until it is in the budget, or I get my Uber overkill system up and running. Probably be doing a video on that next week sometime, hopefully next 2 weeks. That system's coming. It's been delayed due to the human malware, but that system is coming. So I think that about wraps up this video. Let me know in the comments below your thoughts on this build and what you would do for an upgrade path. What your thoughts on upgrading it to be able to do streaming, editing, and 1080p gaming. One last thing, if you're thinking about a new desktop or gaming computer, send me an email at spartanene@gmail.com. I'll pop that up on the screen somewhere. Let me know what your usage would look like, what you hope to get from a new system, and what you would have in mind for budget. I'll get you a quote, seeing what I can do to get you up and running with a custom system for your needs and budget. I'm able to do systems within most budgets and use cases. So thanks for watching. Please like, comment, share, and subscribe, as it would really help the channel grow. Hey, thanks for taking the time to stop and watch the video. At the moment, my content creation is only a hobby. I'm hoping to one day turn it into a side income, maybe a full career. Won't be able to do that without your support. If you're able, please like, share, subscribe to the channel. Help immensely in growing the channel and advancing it forward. Hoping one day to be able to upgrade some of my equipment, get a proper microphone. Eventually looking forward to purchasing an editing license, being able to bring you videos in 1080p, maybe 4K even. It's also going to require some upgrading to the hardware I'm using to make the videos. Won't be able to do any of that without your support, so again, please like, subscribe, share. Until next time, I thank you for stopping by and going on an adventure with me. Feel free to leave a comment, send me an email. I'm going to try and get the email address somewhere up on the page here. Let me know what kind of content you'd like to see on the channel. See you next time.